Beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prosper. God bless you. I'm shooting this obviously outside on this beautiful, wonderful Saturday morning. I'm headed to Flint, and I decided I would just pull over at a rest area and shoot this footage for today's message. My voice hasn't fully recovered from this cold I've been fighting for 2 weeks, and I preached last Sunday on a voice that was still recovering and then couldn't talk at all last week. So I'm gonna give my voice a break tomorrow at church, or should I say today at church, because you'll be watching this on Sunday, hopefully, and bring this message here from outside. Look, get to a place in life where you can enjoy yourself, you can enjoy your Savior, you can enjoy your family, and you can just experience what David said when he said, "My cup runneth over." Man, when your joy cup is full and it spills over, you can be happy in life, man, with just the basics, much less everything else that God is going to bless you with. But to be able to get up in the morning and then say with a joyful spirit, "This is the day that the Lord has made, and it's a beautiful day." And, I can't speak for everybody else, but I will rejoice and be glad in it. Let me just say I thank you all for this month. I know you all have been hearing a lot of negative facts about our health, and I thank you all for being patient, should I say, in these messages I've been bringing on this series called the Preventable Sick List. And a lot of facts, negative facts about our race as a people, how we are worse in diabetes, worse in congestive heart failure, worse in high blood pressure. And I just think that it's incumbent upon us, as we are experiencing the joy of Jesus ourselves, to want the very best for those around us in the community in which we reside, in which we serve, in which we work. You know, I don't want to just be happy in and of myself. I want my wife happy. I want my children happy. I want my mother and my father, my family, my friends, my neighborhood where I live, my neighborhood where I serve, and my neighborhood where I work. I just want people to get the most out of life that God has for us to enjoy. But this month, we've been speaking from 3 John, verse number 2, and I love it. It says, "Beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health." Man, you cannot enjoy days like this when you are sick. You can't enjoy days like this when you have to be shut in. You know, when something is always wrong, when something is always ailing you. We have more pain medications now than ever before in the history of our country, and people are still living in pain. But when you can enjoy this, when you can prosper and be in health, even as your soul prospers, man, it's a beautiful thing. Get to a place in life where you are happy where you worship, happy where you work, happy where you live, and happy with whom you live with. That is a beautiful place in this life. And as I've said also this month, get to a place in life where you desire to hear the truth and not just entertained, well-manicured lectures, speeches, and words. Which means that being fired up on something that you can't take home is pure entertainment. And don't get me wrong, I love entertainment. I love it, man. I absolutely love going home, watching TV shows. I love going to watch the kids play basketball. I love all that. That's entertainment. But I need to hear something during the week that's going to affect change. And if anybody needs change, it is us as black people, man. Let me play some clips from a couple of news clips from last year, and then some from just this past week, just to show you, man, that things are really not getting better, but they're actually getting worse, despite the growth of churches, despite more pastors, preachers, teachers than we've ever had before, and not only in our communities, but also in our country. Look at these news clippings, and then we'll come back and talk some more. But until then, this is the day. This is the beautiful day that the Lord has made. I'm going to rejoice. And I hope you rejoice and be glad in it.
You know, it is an embarrassment to a school district that's bleeding students and money. And tonight, Detroit students are still being locked out of costly classrooms that you spent a fortune to build.
Tonight, the 7 investigators hold school buses accountable for district waste that's left students in the dark. Here's 7 investigator Ross Jones.
For creative young people in Detroit, few places are better than the Detroit School of Arts, a $200 million jewel in Midtown, a high school unlike any other. Built 10 years ago, at a time when the district was bleeding money, no expense was spared. That includes millions upon millions of dollars for treasures that remain hidden from students.
Do they ever talk about why the equipment's locked away?
No, they never talked about it.
You just can't use it.
Yeah, it's just a side of the school that we don't use, but we know it's there.
What Dajané and scores of other students don't know is that behind these locked doors is TV equipment that would rival most networks, equipment they've never touched. In 2005, the district paid premium prices for 8 high-definition studio cameras like these, nearly $200,000 for each. Video switchers in 2 control rooms ran at least $700,000 apiece, and this lighting grid, it was another $1 million. The equipment made DSA studios not just some of the best in the country.
Try the world. Try the world. I mean, they spent, I believe, somewhere in excess of $30 million.
Yes, that's right. The bill for all of this gear, about $33 million.
It not only embarrasses me, but it also angers me that someone constructed a school for the purpose of educating kids, and they actually aren't.
And they haven't for 10 years. When Steve Wilson and I started asking questions in 2009, district officials blamed their predecessors, saying the studios were built without a curriculum, the equipment was too sophisticated, and they didn't have the money to train instructors. They promised us back then that the students would be using the equipment in just a few weeks.
We're solving a lot of problems in this school district in 1 and 2 days' time that used to take 7 months and 7 years to solve. As you know, it's a new day in town with Detroit Public Schools.
Turns out it wasn't. These were the studios in 2009, and 6 years later, virtually nothing has changed. After 3 emergency managers, the studios still dark, the equipment still locked away.
It's a new day in town with Detroit Public Schools.
That was then, this is now.
Ross Jones, Jeff Martin.
We tracked down the emergency manager for Detroit Public Schools before he stepped down this month.
We did an interview 5 years ago with your colleague, Mr. Wasco, who was sitting to your left, and he vowed that this was going to be addressed and was being addressed at that moment. 5 years later, we're in the exact same spot we were in.
I think a big difference now is that one of the governor's top priorities is career tech education.
Can you promise that a year from now, the studios will be up and running, the equipment will be functional, students can finally take advantage of this?
I could not make that promise, but what I can promise you is that all of the programming at DSA will be enhanced.
Well, only a few weeks after that interview, things finally started to change. Our cameras were there when volunteers from Detroit Public TV were working to get the equipment up and running. The smaller of the 2 studios is nearly functional, we're told, but the much larger and more costly one, along with its multi-million-dollar control room, DPS has no plans today to get that one running, saying it needs much more work. Officials insist that as early as next month, students could begin to use one of the studios after teachers are instructed on how it works. And this time, they say they mean it.
It's not rocket science. You built the damn school for the purpose of educating kids in television, so utilize the darn facility.
Seems simple enough. Well, even though the equipment is still awfully nice, and it is nicer than a lot of what we have in here right now, after 10 years, some of it is getting out of date. And getting it up to the current standards could cost, we're told, about $400 grand. But a spokeswoman for DPS tells me they don't have that kind of money. And for now, students will have to learn with some outdated equipment, assuming they end up using it.
Wow, you know it doesn't take long.
So it's been sitting there for 10 years doing nothing. And you start asking questions, and then suddenly, boom.
It's funny how that works, isn't it?
Coincidence?
They would tell you, and in fact, they told me they were going to solve this anyway.
Right.
It doesn't really matter to us. We don't want the credit. We just want this to work so that we're not doing a story next year saying it's been 11 years.
What's a shame is that it's outdated after 10
Now, yeah,
years,
'cause
and
they've
now
gone
$400,000
HD
to update it.
Well, they have HD cameras, but you know, it's still very nice. Some of it not as nice as it would be if they bought it today, for sure.
Well, good job staying on top of the story after all of these years and
Hope we
getting
get
it
fixed.
resolved. Yeah,
Sure.
let's hope so.
All right, tonight.
Growing concern about troubling levels of lead and copper found in the water at 19 Detroit schools. Tonight, 7 Action News reporter Kim Russell shows us there's demand for more action as the district tries to deal with this.
The Detroit Federation of Teachers submitted this letter to school administrators today. It says the Detroit Public Schools needs to do much more to address the elevated levels of lead found in water at some schools. One thing this letter calls for, lead testing for staff and students. We spoke to experts here at Children's Hospital about what parents need to know if they're worried. Detroit Public Schools started doing water testing to make sure kids are safe after other school districts found lead or copper in their water. Now parents are learning. The district found concerning levels of copper or lead in water at now 19 elementary or middle schools. High schools are yet to be tested. One school saw 100 times the allowable limit of lead. That school is Ronald Brown Academy, and the dangerously high lead levels found in water from the drinking fountain. One student at that school says it's frightening.
It'd be a good thing to know that there's not lead in my body.
His mom says she has had him tested before and will again if his doctor recommends it. Dr. Kanta Bambani, a pediatrician and director of Children's Hospital's lead clinic, says kids are less likely to absorb dangerous amounts of lead from water than from paint chips, old houses, or even soil. Still, parents at impacted schools may want to have their kids tested, especially if they drank the water at the school while 6 years old or younger.
If they do ingest a large amount of lead, they absorb more than 50% of the lead that's ingested as compared to an older child who would be absorbing only 5%.
Children's Hospital says if money is an issue, parents can get free help at the hospital's Gateway to Health clinic. Detroit Public Schools says it is working with the city's health department to come up with a response plan to make sure kids and staff are cared for and water is safe.
Whatever needs to be done to ensure the safety of our students and staff, the district is responsible for making sure that that happens.
In Detroit, Kim Russell, 7 Action News.
And we begin this afternoon with the scandal at Detroit Public Schools and the changes that are expected in the wake of this.
Well, today, the U.S. Attorney filed charges against a number of school leaders who investigators say stole hundreds of thousands of dollars from DPS.
7 Action News reporter Kim Russell is live outside the U.S. Attorney's office. And Kim, who's facing charges?
These are the 13 cases filed in federal court. They are lengthy, a lot of people named. One of them is an assistant superintendent, Clara Flowers, assistant superintendent of special education. She's accused of taking more than $300,000 plus 13 principals facing charges. I know a lot of parents are saying, I wonder if my child's school is impacted. We made a list of the principals involved, allegedly, and the schools. I want you to take a look at this list. We started with the one accused of taking the least. We are talking about Principal the current principal at Jerry L. White High. He's accused of taking $4,000. Then the amounts increase in this order by school. Current or former principals allegedly took money from Marcus Garvey Academy, Osborne Collegiate Academy of Mathematics and Science and Technology, Drew, Earhart, Spain Elementary Middle School, Davis Aerospace, Bennett Elementary, Rosa Parks, Greenfield Union Elementary Middle School, Thurgood Marshall Elementary, Fleming, Brenda Scott, Hutchinson Elementary, and taking the most, allegedly, the current principal at Thurkel, Clara Smith, the principal accused of taking $194,000 in total, almost $1 million in bribes or kickbacks allegedly paid in this scam.
The conduct alleged here is egregious.
U.S. Attorney Barbara McQuaid says the charges come after a 2-year investigation by the FBI and the IRS. She says the bribes and kickbacks came from a man who lives in this extravagant house in Farmington Hills. Norman Shai owns the company's Allstate Supplies and Worldwide Sales, providing school supplies. Sources tell me they noticed the invoices for what he sent seemed high sometimes, and in some cases stuff was not needed. This is a picture of a box of paper that has been sitting unused for some time. It has many people asking, how did this happen? Did the school lack needed oversight?
I think it's shocking anytime you hear that 13 very high-level school officials are engaged in bribery. Is there lack of oversight? I think that's a question for those in management of Detroit Public Schools or emergency managers to decide.
Investigators say kickbacks and bribes started in some cases as far back as 2002 and led to an estimated $2.7 million in fraudulent costs to the district. As for how administrators got away with this, principals allegedly accepted inaccurate invoices. Bribes were paid in gift cards, checks to relatives, or shell companies. As for how they got caught, another case led investigators to Norman Shy. He allegedly kept records of kickbacks and bribes paid. Now, if convicted, these people, they face up to 5 years in prison plus paying restitution. Now, this all comes at a very key time for Detroit Public Schools. Lawmakers are still debating that $700 million in money to help the district address its debt. The timing of these charges, no accident. We'll take a look at that ahead on 7 Action News at 6 and how it could impact the district's ability to get help. Reporting live in Detroit, Kim Russell, 7 Action News.
All right, Kim, no, they're allegations, but a lot of people shaking their heads today.
All thanks to Project Green Light, Detroit police now have clear images of what happened. New video just released of that overnight shooting at a local gas station. But now police are looking for the public's help and finding that female shooter. This is at the mobile gas station located in the 15,000 block of Finkel on Detroit's west side. This is also a Project Green Light business where the surveillance video is sent directly back to police headquarters. Investigators have requested that we only show the shooter's face, who is the only female in this bunch. Take a look at the two cars you see in the parking lot, where there is a heated argument. The female goes into the blue Charger, and it appears she puts a gun in her skirt. Seconds later, she walks to the Grand Prix and fires multiple times, striking the driver more than once. Fortunately, police say the injuries are not life-threatening. The driver in the Grand Prix lunges his vehicle, knocking down one of the men from the blue Charger. At that point, one man from the Grand Prix is able to wrestle the gun away from the shooter, and both cars are quickly gone from the scene. But take one more look at the shooter. Police say she is 5'2", 140 pounds, light complexion, black hair with cornrows or braids, and last seen wearing a white or red checkered shirt, blue jean skirt, and red boots.
Assembly plant tells me there's about 4,000 workers inside, and the suspect, police say, not only has a violent past, but he had a crime-filled morning. So the police chief says this could have turned out much, much worse. Around 9:30 a.m., employees spilled out onto Chrysler's Jefferson Assembly Plant's front lawn wearing coveralls and safety vests, not feeling very safe.
We just got a phone call that there was a gunman in the plant, and then we evacuated.
Unusual because we don't get a lot of calls here. They have great security.
Police Chief James Craig says a former employee, a black male, walked right into the building with a semi-automatic Colt 45, presumably to find his live-in girlfriend who still works at the plant.
And this is really where the story takes a turn for the good.
A current employee recognized the ex-employee, noticed the gun, and called a union steward, who then rounded up 7 other stewards and hunted the man down.
He, along with 7 of his co-workers, subdued the individual, was able to gain control of the weapon, and he was taken into custody by the union stewards waiting for our arrival. But this is a great example of people working together. I mean, just heroic.
Even more heroic considering the busy morning he allegedly had.
A person of interest in a carjacking that occurred early this morning.
4 separate carjackings, to be exact. The 4th is how police believe the armed man was able to drive onto the property without being noticed. That suspect is behind bars, and the charges, well, I don't have a full list yet because they just keep adding up. Reporting in Detroit, I'm Jennifer Ann Wilson, 7 Action News.
Now, that's what I'm talking about. You look at how bad things not are, but look at how bad things are going, despite a very mild winter, despite 8 years of a black president who have bent over backwards to help poor and the poor and the disadvantaged, despite gas prices being, ridiculously low. Businesses are hiring left and right. Look at how bad things are, and look at how bad things are going. And if the church can't move the needle in the right direction, who can? If the church can't pray I like this, the response to Solomon. Solomon was dedicating the temple to God. He was so happy that his father David couldn't build it, but Solomon had finally completed it in 2 Chronicles, I believe, chapter 7. And Solomon was dedicating the temple, and Solomon said, what can we do to show our appreciation for all you have done? And then the response Solomon got back was, if my people who are called by my name humble themselves, pray, seek my face, turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and I will heal the land. So what God was simply saying is that he wants to help us. He wants to heal us. But we simply refuse to turn from our wicked ways in many cases. We refuse to prioritize him. We're having bigger church buildings, but smaller bigger church buildings, but smaller worship services. The buildings are getting bigger, but the worship services are getting smaller, 2 hours, hour and a half, hour, 45-minute worship services. And by raising the consciousness of the people in the church and those in the community to pay attention to these things that are going on, and not just accept it, but come to the church and let's pray for an answer. And he gave me a plan to that, and I was excited. And so many other things that God has shown me this year that I'm just elated about. I said at the beginning of the year, God showed me some things that just completely knocked me out, and I've had to fast on Fridays just to say, God, I want to make sure I'm not missing it. I'm not, it's not just my imagination running away with me, as the songwriter said. But when God when God shows you some things that are bigger than your wildest imagination, it's breathtaking. I put that footage on Facebook last week, and I called it unspeakable praise. That when God gives you a picture or a glimpse of things to come, that it leaves you speechless. And I put it on Facebook, and let me show you this to you. And it's exactly how I felt. And there's some things that God had showed me that he hadn't done, but excuse me. But since I made that footage, God has done some things. But I was rejoicing over what he had showed me and told me to go do that particular weekend that has manifested itself after I shot that footage. Watch this. Yeah, that's the song when Deacon Fred sang, I got joy, unspeakable joy. You know, you can't say it, but all you can do is, you know, kind of, you know, and to get to the part where it's at, I just can't tell it all. You don't know like I know, you just gotta, hey man, experience that. That's like a roller coaster ride and riding a roller coaster at Cedar Point. It's the experience. It's the experience of the thrill of God taking you up. David said not David, but I think it was John said I was caught up in the Spirit on the Lord's day. When you get caught up like that, and God just overwhelms you with visions that you almost can't contain yourself. You know, you by yourself and you praising God as loud as you would in front of a church crowd. You know, but let me get back to this thing about our health. We have got to walk more, church. We've got to watch what we eat. We have to cut back on our consumption of sodium and sugar. We have to. We absolutely have to. The food right now is preserved already in high sodium contents. If you get a can of soup, look at it. I think it's 1,000 milligrams of sodium. And soup, I was when I was trying to get over this cold, I was drinking soup once, twice a day. And I told my wife I was feeling lightheaded. She said it's probably high blood pressure because the amount of sodium in those cans of soup is extremely high. You know, but so we don't need to add salt and pepper and sugar to everything. That's what's causing us to have these extremely large, high blood pressure levels, these extremely high statistics in the number of us who has type 2 diabetes, and our what's called sedentary lifestyles, and we're always sitting. Some of us sit on the job all day, drive home in a car for a long period of time, and then sit at home and then go back and repeat the same thing. That's dangerous to our health. We need to exercise, we need to walk, run, dance, and I shot a video clip on my some exercise I did at home and at the gym, and it didn't get a lot of. I guess it did. It got some play on Facebook, but people at my job, man, they love it. I've been asked already to give people some DVDs, but I'm gonna show it to you. And I'm also gonna show you one that First Lady Michelle Obama did. It was pretty nice. So watch this.
One of the things that we love to do when we're working out and warming up, or when we're getting ready to box or do things like that, is to jump rope. When you're jumping rope, you don't want to come off the floor too high. It's not that much of an impact exercise if you only come up off the floor just enough to see the light. You want to make sure you keep your elbows tucked in. You don't want to use a whole arm swing. Just nice and easy turns of the wrist, and this is very good for hand and eye coordination, for timing and things of that nature. One of the things we believe in is variety is the spice. So we're gonna make sure we keep a lot of spice in what we do. So we're gonna use the medicine ball, and we're gonna do several different ab movements to challenge the abs in different planes. So it's real important to add symmetrical strength by using different planes. The in and out squat with the bench. That's an explosive kind of plyometric movement. We're using that movement to add explosiveness to the quads or to your legs. So what we'll do is we'll take the bench, we will go from a standing position, explode up on top of the bench into a squat, and then come back down, squatting again. We're not afraid to lift weights. This is an incline bench exercise, which kind of really works the upper region of the pectorals. Certainly if you're going to use heavy weight, you should have someone assisting you to make sure. But it's just really important when you're thinking about benching to make sure your wrist is right over your elbow and you're keeping that in line. And so you're kind of coming down to 90 degrees. You don't want to overstretch when you're doing a bench. And then you're pressing it right up above your chest. The bag. We really love to use boxing for conditioning, for hand and eye coordination, for transference of power, learning how to move from point A to point B and bring your power with you. And because it's fun, it's also great to then learn to incorporate kicks with it. So in this particular thing, we're going to do a jab cross, and then we do a roundhouse kick.
Don't forget, always drink up.
Somebody needs to shout unto God with the voice of triumph in here. Let's get this thing started off right. Let's get this thing started off with some high praise. Big time, hit it.
this right here is how I turn up. Coconut water. Not very good, but very good for the body. Look, eat right, think positive, praise the Lord. It's a really good life. Take care of your body, exercise. God bless you.
Okay, I got to wrap this up because I got to get to Flint and take care of my mama and get back and hang out with my wife tonight, man. We practice good eating habits. Practice good thinking habits. You know, don't think the negative. I was talking to a person that had been blessed and they were frustrated because somebody else was making them mad. I said, don't let people steal your joy. Jesus gave us 2 commandments. Watch this. I think it's in Matthew chapter 22. I'll look it up and I'll tell you tomorrow. I'll tell you today, which is tomorrow when you see this. Matthew chapter 22, I believe they said, Master, what are the greatest of commandments? He said, these 2 commandments are the greatest. First, love God with all your heart, mind, and soul. And the second is like to the first, love your neighbor as you love yourself. Now, 2 loves. How deep is your love, first of all? I like that song, How Deep Is Your Love? But love for God, love for self. You cannot love yourself if you don't take care of yourself. Take care of your car, that's wonderful. Take care of your credit, that's great. Take care of your house, super. Take care of your hair, absolutely. Take care of your clothes, yes. Take care of your body. Love God as you love your neighbor as you love yourself. This is yourself. How much do you love yourself? How much do you love your God? If you can love your God and you can love yourself, you can love any and everybody else. How deep is your love? Let me draw you a cross and let me close this thing out.